Hello students. Let's start with the most important and most lucrative aspect of ethics paper, that is case studies, because case studies constitute around 120 to 130 marks, mostly 120 marks. But the point is, it is not typical, the way we see other topics where, we have some question, then there is some material or book, whatever you want to, and then you reproduce in answer. This is normally what we do. I'm not saying that it's complete reproduction, reproducing, but majority part would be kind of reproducing the things. But when it comes to case study, this is not the thing. When it comes to case study, this actually is not a question. This is called situation. Okay, and this is not an answer. This is called response. Please, this is very important to remember. First and foremost thing that you need to remember is this, that you are not going to write, you are not expected to write, you have not been asked to write any answer. It is a response, obviously in the answer sheet, yeah, but in the form of some particular format. That also I will discuss what would be the best format for this. So first and foremost, again I'm repeating. Why I'm repeating? Because this is the most needed attitude perspective change with respect to case studies that you need to have, and that is, it is not a question to be answered, it is a situation to be responded. Please always keep these things to your mind very intact, and tell this to yourself again and again, that it is not a question to be answered, rather it's a situation to be followed, situation to be responded to. This is very, very important, and this is very important as in it plays, that's the very nature of this particular topic or a particular aspect. Okay, so case studies. Now another thing that we should be very thorough about case studies is, the basic meaning of the word case study means it is a particular scenario, it is specific and not general, and response also, you might have heard this term, case by case. What do you mean by case by case? The meaning of case by case means there is no generalization. Okay, no generalization. When we say no generalization means, what does it actually mean? That everything else that we study, there is a theory, there is a generalization, there are some basic principles we understand, some theoretical aspects we understand, that we have done it in part 1. But in case studies, each and every case need to have a tailor-made response. You cannot have uniform response to case study. Does that mean there is no aspect which can be treated as uniform? No. Obviously, format will be uniform. Other things would be, there would be some standard format, yes. But please need to understand, format can be standard, but your response has to be, as we say, case by case. Now, there is another aspect you will understand what I'm trying to say. Like generally, what's our perception is, when there is a question, there is one or two perfect answer, or most of the time people just think that there is only one perfect answer. Perfect means the answer which can give maximum possible mark, like for example 8 out of 10. Okay, this is how we perceive with respect to questions, typical theoretical questions. When it comes to case study, it is not at all the case. That is, there are at least 5 to 6 or maybe more than that perfect answers. I mean, all will get 8 out of 10. Obviously, there will be some common features, but this you need to keep in mind while writing case studies, while solving case studies. That is, the maximum possible marks are not entitled to only one type or one method or one way of writing the answer. And in fact, the way you present also can be very much different than the other person, and both can get 8 out of 10 marks. I hope you understand this. This is very, very, very important, because to to unlearn normally what we assume for theoretical questions is very crucial in case studies. Okay, case study is the whole thing. Because of this wrong perspective that case study is also part of syllabus, there will be some material, I will read the material and I'll go and write in the test. Nothing of that sort is going to happen. Please try to understand. Does that mean there is no material? Yes, there is material available, but that is not the way that we need to tackle, we need to address the case studies. Is completely different than what we do with theoretical questions, right? So case study means every case is a different scenario altogether. Please try to understand. As I said, there is some broad generalization possible just to understand, but when the case is asked to you, even a slightest change in the scenario, slightest change in the explanation of the scenario will change the answer dramatically. Okay, because it's all about ethical standard, its justification and other things, right? So let us see one by one. Now, yes, this is also very, very important. I consider this is very crucial as to why UPSC in first place, okay, why UPSC in first place came with case studies. Okay, this helps us because see, there is no as like history, geography, polity, economy, or theoretical aspect of ethics, or your optional. We have books, we read the books, we reproduce the things. But when it comes to case study, there is very less authentic and reliable resource which can enlighten us as to what would be the kind of questions and what is it like to be solving the ethics paper. So ethics paper ka what is the kind of content or context of it. For that, its best way to know is to go back to UPSC. That is, try to understand why UPSC brought in this paper. Obviously, I have also made it amply clear during our ethical theoretical part of ethics that UPSC very well knows that this paper is not expecting or having this paper. UPSC is not expecting to make all the aspirants ethical. Obviously, they also know that this is not going to happen. Number one, but does that mean it is of no use? No, it's not ceremonial. It has its own utility in terms of making you better aware, making you more aware about the ethical terms, so that you can appreciate those terms, you can have some inclination towards those terms and all that. But there is a basic problem with ethics as a subject, that is, and that too vis-a-vis administrator, is that theoretically it is very easy to communicate and say things, but the real ethicality, real character of the way the person is thinking, because here you are actually not going to take any action per se, you are just going to think as if you are taking an action. So each case study is nothing but a simulation of real life. Please try to understand this. This is also very important for you to understand. it is a simulation of real life. So every case study is a simulation of real life, and hence you also need to kind of tackle it, need to address it, considering that it is a simulation and not a question, as we have already discussed. So when it comes to real life, obviously ethical stance, theoretical stance, but also considering the practical situation and issues in front of you, and other legal and other constraints that you might be having. Now why UPSC brought in this? See, obviously we know that whatever case study is going to ask you is not exactly what you going to talk about, or this is not exactly what you're going to do. There might be many changes, but at least some presentable, less complex piece of situation. Okay, what they try to do is, when it is real life, there are 1,000 things, or like for that matter, there are 30 different aspects to this particular case study. When it comes to putting it on the paper, what they will do, they will just keep 4 5 to see how you do it. Okay, so this is mainly because just to see in which direction, in what way you are kind of able to solve this particular scenario. That is, whatever situation comes in front of you, it is the situation obviously kind of extracted out of a very complex situation, which would be the case once you kind of start working as an administrator, DM, SP, or whichever service. There the situation will be much more complex. It will not be exactly the way it is here, but still, point is, still you are required to think in a different way, and think as if it is a real simulation, and then only you should be able to you will be able to, and you should be able to answer. So please try to understand that whenever you tackle case study, these things have to be kept in mind. Whatever I am saying this before starting the real case study as an example, this you please note down, and every time, because these are contextual things, these are perspective things. So every time you face kind of focus or face a case study, it's like a reciting. You tell these things to yourself, 5 4 things, that this is a real life simulation. It's not a question to be answered, but a situation to be responded. And it has to, we have to understand that this case study is going to be very very similar, but not exactly similar to the real life situation, because that's not a possible thing. They have to cover 5 6 different case studies, and एक scenario explain करने के लिए they will need 4 5 pages, which is not possible. Still, you might have seen of late UPSC's the length of the question itself is a big issue. Okay, in case study, this is also one of the major issues students face, but that we will discuss as to how to go about it and all those, right? So point is, the reason why UPSC is coming with this particular paper is they want to see in what direction you think. It's not about your solution more. Obviously, your solution only will reflect that that is in which direction you are coming, thinking and all that. But that's not important, because as I said, the other person might have taken some other, like most of the time there are 3 options: option 1, option 2, option 3. You might choose option 1, another might choose option 2, because most of the time what happens, there are 3 4 options. One is obviously nobody should take. Second is almost obviously nobody should take, and the rest of the 2 would be competing with each other for the selection. So that generally happens. So either of these 2 you can take, you can still have better marks. Both can have good marks. There is no perfect answer there. Please try to understand that. But your answer should be based on what? Your answer should be based on your own logical supporting arguments, substantiation, and then only you should go for the choice. Okay. What we already discussed, because it's a real life simulation, but as I said, it is a reduced proportionately reduced kind of simulation. So it's not exactly the way it is, because then it's not possible practically to write that in exam. Okay. And why also we saw, because UPSC wants you to go through the process and want to see in what direction you think, because it's very similar to interview, because you might have heard in interview also, it has been seen that UPSC asks such questions. Okay, मान के चलो कि आप डीएम है और ऐसा ऐसा हुआ एंड ऑल दैट. सो ये मान के चलो वाला मींस केस स्टडी ही होता है मोस्टली. ठीक. सो that's the thing. Now another thing is how to tackle that, we will discuss. Now broadly there are two types of case studies, broadly, now very broadly, and this broadly thing is nothing but very similar to the syllabus also we have. So one classification is, okay, one is common life examples and second is governance case study. Now obviously governance case studies are, you are IAS officer and most of the case studies will be governance, but there would be some common life case studies also, like your friend, you see something like that. Now there is another way, which is perhaps more prominent way of kind of segregating, another kind of classification of these two broad types, which perhaps is more important, and that is stand, okay, and second action. Basically stand means we have options and you have to choose one of the options, and action means you have to have course of action or steps. Please try to understand, most of the time the stand and common life are together, most of the time. I'm not saying all the time, because there are some governance case study which also gives you options and this thing. And action, that is course of action, is linked with governance case studies. What is the difference between the two? See, imagine this scenario, like you are sitting in the interview panel for the government job, coveted government job, and you get a call from your senior, which is also budget allocation and authorization authority, not budget authorization, but kind of allocation of money for you, for your project basically, or your district. I'm sorry. So, and you get a call from that senior who has the authority to release money for your district for particular work for which you have been trying a lot. You get a call from the person that is senior and asks you to do some favor to some candidate X that will be coming to you for the interview. In return, he will release the money, and you are not going to misuse the money for your personal gain, obviously, but he will release the money so that the project will get over. Now here it is a stand question, that is you have very mutually exclusive options. See, whenever UPSC asks about option, this also many people do mistake. Your case study may, whenever they are talking about options, what all options do you have? Options are always mutually exclusive. Please try to understand this. Mutually exclusive means this: either you can accept the senior or reject the senior's offer, basically senior's offer, reject the offer, Okay. In this particular scenario, simply let's think very simplistically. These are two mutually exclusive options. Means you cannot choose the two. The very basic scenario is like that. You cannot choose it in both the things together. Either you accept the offer or you reject the offer, and in rejection you will have your justification. In this particular case study, you can honestly, I'm telling you, you can choose one or two, whichever thing you think is justifiable from your personality. I can guarantee you that both will get good marks if the justification and articulation of that justification is very sound. So, in this particular case that I was talking about, that senior is asking that he will release money for your district. You just select this person. He is my bhanja, whatever. So please do that. And you know the the candidate is also eligible. Otherwise, also very intelligent. There is no issue. But just in case there is some problem, he has called you. But now it's your responsibility. If he gets selected, otherwise through the process, which is okay. If it doesn't get selected, then you lose the money, or again your project get kind of extended. Now, whenever there is option, please try to understand, option can only be mutually exclusive. That is, only one option can be chosen. Option 3 and option 4 I will choose. Ye galat answers. If they are asking options, you have to write it categorically. Okay. If you want to mix options, and that too we have to properly mix it. You cannot just put ye bhi lunga thoda wo bhi, aisa nahi. There has to be organic understanding in that. In that case, that will be a third option. Okay. Third option, that is mixture. Thoda ye thoda wo. But thoda ye thoda wo ho ही नहीं सकता. Either you accept or you reject. In fact, option शब्द का basic मतलब ही यही है कि one against the other होता है. ओके और कोई भी ऑप्शन आप सिलेक्ट करते हैं, ऑब्वियसली यू नीड टू जस्टिफिकेशन एज टू व्हाई आर यू चूजिंग इट. एंड प्लीज ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड, वेन एवर यू चूज वन ऑप्शन, there are some merits and there are some demerits, yes or no. And whenever you choose option, merits would be the reason why you chose the option, but don't ignore demerits. When you have chosen the option, how would you minimize, how would you address the demerits? Should be extra. Address the demerit should be the extra point to be talked about. Don't ignore this aspect. Okay, it's your job to address to the extent possible. Because agar, for example, in this particular case, if I decide to accept the senior's offer, now what would be the demerits? Because then what is happening? First, you are going against your own ethics. Second, you are putting a wrong precedent. Third, you are supporting the unethical behavior of the officer. Fourth, possibly the candidate lacks somewhere minutely, but at least somewhere he lacks, because if that wasn't the case, sorry, there wouldn't have been any contact. What would you do for these four things? You have to mention. Reduce the impacts of demerits. You have to do. So, once you choose the option, the demerits will be tackled in the following way. Should be the extra paragraph. It has to be like that. Most of the time, what would they do? That they will ask you options, and for whatever options that you have chosen, there would be some course of action. जैसे मैंने सोचा कि because options are always in principle, options will never hold details. Details will be held in next point, and that is course of action. Okay, that we will come to. So options means mutually exclusive, दोनों नहीं कर सकते. Now second generally type comes is, that is course of action or steps. There is another, there are many terms used, but like this, steps. Here Here it is not mutually exclusive, obviously. So what you can do is, whenever there is course of action, at least in your mind, you have to imagine algorithm. Means, what would you do? Step number 1. Okay. Step 1. Then step 2. Then अगर yes है तो step 3. No है तो step 4. Like that, like that, like that. If there is no if and but, straight away go with step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, like that. And course of action में most important होता है aspects, different aspects, or I would say different fronts or different issues. Okay, different challenges. I'm explaining the same thing again and again because it's very important. So whenever the question comes about course of action, most likely the question will be little more complex, as in practical complexity. Like कहीं flood हुआ है and media is negative for no reason. There is some antisocial elements creating issue there. People are stranded somewhere. So now here it's not about your ethical stand. You know what to do. Point is, how would you tackle everything together in a limited span of time? What all decisions will you take? Each and every decision might be obviously kind of explained if there is explanation needed. But point here that is to be focused is now how many different aspects that you can put your eye on. How many different aspects you take into consideration while actually solving that particular situation is the skill to be kind of evaluated here. Here it's not about stand the way it was here. It was in options, means it is about ethical stand and its justification basically. When I say stand, please you should hear justification. And when I say justification, please automatically understand articulation. When it comes to marks, articulation, very important. Okay, but when it comes to here, it is how many different aspects. That is, whenever there is course of action, their stand is important. यहाँ पे multifacetedness is important. How many different things you can take into consideration and resolve the issue. जो चीजें उसमें नहीं भी दी हैं, you are expected to imagine and work and kind of respond accordingly, right? So these are the two broad terms. And as I said, course of action में ज्यादातर governance की case studies आती है. You know, governance का मतलब आपका कुछ रोल होगा, आप डीएम होंगे, आप एसपी होंगे, ब्ला ब्ला. और इस पे ज्यादातर वो दोनों आती हैं वैसे, बट नॉन गवर्नेंस वाली यहाँ पे जो है ज्यादा आती है. नॉन गवर्नेंस की ज्यादा, लाइक एज आई सेड, योर फ्रेंड इज दिस, योर पेरेंट्स आर दिस एंड लाइक दैट. तो उसमें गवर्नेंस का कोई पार्ट नहीं होता, लेकिन यू हैव सम एथिकल स्टैंड and some justification for that stand is to be taken. I hope this is understood, because this is very, very important. Okay, so when we say that there are two broadly two types, one is from first part of the paper is formed, second part of the paper. Okay, and stands, or yeah, ethical stand, whatever, and then action, course of action or steps. These two are generally you know, if you want to understand as to how the case studies are formed and what are different kinds of case studies, these are the two broad categories under which the case studies kind of explain itself, and you are also expected to think in this particular line. So any case study comes to your in front of you, आपको ये समझ में आना चाहिए कि ये कौन से कैटेगरी में आ रही है, ये ऑप्शन वाले कैटेगरी में जा रही है या एक्शन वाले कैटेगरी में जा रही है। ऑप्शन वाले कैटेगरी में जा रही है तो वो म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव होना चाहिए, एथिकल स्टैंड होना इंपॉर्टेंट है, ब्ला ब्ला। कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन वाले में जा रही है तो वहां पे क्या इंपॉर्टेंट है कि भाई आप एक्शन जो ले रहे हैं उसमें कितनी कितनी अलग अलग एस्पेक्ट्स कवर कर पा रहे हैं, टाइम इशू, फंडिंग का इशू, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर इशू एंड सो ऑन। ओके, so that's how the case study has to be understood. So this is exactly what we discussed, variants. Now, as I said, these two are very important variants. We already talked about options and course of action, stand and action. Sometimes there are two more different versions or variants. ये क्या है variant मतलब क्या 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 अलग अलग टाइप की केस स्टडीज वो पूछते हैं, और ये आपको समझ में आ गया तो थोड़ा सा आपको लिखने में आसानी होगी कि ये चार में से कौन सा है वो। ठीक है, जनरली इससे अब ये जो चार है इसके अलावा कोई पूछी नहीं गई है, ब्रॉडली किसी ना किसी कैटेगरी में आ जाते हैं। पहली कैटेगरी है जहां पे आपको ऑप्शंस, डोंट गो विद द क्वेश्चन फॉर्मेट, लाइक जहां पे ऑप्शन लिखा होगा ये आएंगे, मोस्ट लाइकली वही होगा, लेकिन ऑप्शन मींस यू आर एक्सपेक्टेड टू थिंक इन अ म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव वे। एक्शन में म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव नहीं, लीनियर सिक्वेंशियल वे, लाइक अ क्रोनोलॉजी। यहां पे क्रोनोलॉजी समझिए, कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन में क्रोनोलॉजी होती है ऑब्वियसली, एंड मल्टीफैसेटेडनेस, एक साथ आप कितनी चीजों को कवर कर रहे हैं। उसके अलावा देयर आर सम टाइप्स ऑफ केस स्टडीज वेयर दे आर बेसिकली नॉट केस स्टडीज। ओके, basically these two are not case study for all, technically they are not case studies, though UPSC clubs them or kind of puts those questions in the case study option, that is ethical explanation and solution to a larger problem. Like for example, this is solution to a larger problem, migration of youth to cities. Okay, migration of youth to cities, and because of which what all ethical and emotional and otherwise problems getting created for the senior citizens staying back in villages. तो ये एक लार्जर सोशल इशू का एक एक्सप्लेनेशन है कि क्या उसका सोल्यूशन हो सकता है, कि पॉलिसी उसकी क्या बनाई सकती है। वहां पे योर सोल्यूशन शुड बी फ्रॉम दी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ऑफ अवेयर सिटीजन। So somebody who is actually kind of a good citizen of India, वो कैसे सोचेगा इसको, इंटेलिजेंट सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया कैसे सोचेगा, वो यहाँ पे देखना जरूरी है। एथिकल एक्सप्लेनेशन में क्या होता है, कोई एक चीज हो चुकी रहती है या फिर कोई एक इश्यू हो चुका रहता है। नाउ as I said, these two are basically theoretical questions only, but they will ask as if they are a case study. Now this is a broad case study, they are not actually not a case study, they are study of that issue study basically, not a case study. But वो भी पूछते हैं कभी कभी कि जैसे there is a issue of water table going down, okay, in the Yavatmal area and all, and people are committing suicide, that is farmers are committing suicide and blah blah। ऐसी चीजों में इसका एथिकल एक्सप्लेनेशन, एथिकल एनालिसिस, एथिकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से उसको देख के कमेंट करिए। तो ये थियोरेटिकल क्वेश्चन टाइप ही होते हैं, ऐसे कम आते हैं, बट स्टिल इट दे आर पार्ट ऑफ केस स्टडी। बट क्लियर कट हार्डकोर केस स्टडी मींस दीज टू, वेयर योर स्टैंड इज इंपॉर्टेंट और योर एक्शन इज इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड समटाइम्स action and stand both are important, depends on how they have formulated the question. Because even if it is option, there is a connection between the two. Even if it is ethical, it is about ethical option, every ethical option would have some course of action, क्योंकि in principle आप चाहेंगे कि चलो मैं तो ये तो I would like the example that we were talking about, if you decide that I am never going to I am not going to accept that thing, the explanation that we were talking about, the particular case study. So I am not going to accept this, and so I'll reject obviously. So then while you reject it, what would be your course of action? क्योंकि रिजेक्शन तो एक डिसीजन है, स्टैंड है, स्टैंड को इंप्लीमेंट कैसे करेंगे? नाउ they might not have asked that because sometimes what happens, you have 4-5 options mutually exclusive. उस केस में obviously you are not expected to, depends on the overall formulation of question. But in your life also हम डिसीजन लेना एक एस्पेक्ट होता है और उस डिसीजन को इंप्लीमेंट करना दूसरा एस्पेक्ट होता है. ओके, सो आपका डिसीजन है वो आपकी एथिकल मोरल प्रिंसिपल पे होता है एंड आपको इंप्लीमेंट करना इज अबाउट योर स्किल. ओके, अबाउट योर एबिलिटी टू इंप्लीमेंट वॉट एवर यू थिंक इज राइट. द मल्टीफैसेटेडनेस, आपका प्लानिंग, आपका स्किल, आपका मेटिकुलस काइंड ऑफ दिस थिंग strategy, those things will help there, right? Okay, so these are the, see, please try to understand. Obviously we will go will solve case studies in the class, but this what we are discussing today now is the most important aspect of the case study. These perspective building is very important, without which you will not be in the position to understand as to what is happening. Because if you go with this perception that okay, this case study is a question, in fact I'll tell you, some of the students, most of the students, the first hurdle that they face when they approach case study is that ये तो बहुत lengthy है, the whole page is question only. It's not a question, it is not a question, it is a situation. And tell me, if I ask you in your own mother tongue or whichever language you are more comfortable with, even if I ask you to explain a scenario that happened in front of you, maybe some incident or something, and you were required to take some action, I'm pretty sure that you will take that much length of time and space, sorry, I mean lengthy. Because to explain situation, you need to write a little bit more. It's not about some theoretical line, one or two. So, in fact, larger the case study, better for us. Only if one, you have this perspective that अच्छे से explain होगा तो मुझे समझ में आएगा, so larger is better. And second is you have practiced that, because otherwise एक pressure situation में इतना लंबा पढ़ना becomes a big issue, very big issue. So don't get bogged down by this length of case study and all. That's not, in fact, as I said, longer the case study, more would be the information and more would be the kind of easiness for you to take decision. Tell me, in your life, if you are you in capacity of whatever you are, like you are aspirant now, you might be working somewhere, you might be imagining yourself to be sitting in the DM's chair. Don't you think whenever you are required to take a decision, you would like to have maximum possible information? Yes. So why do you want the case study should be short and take decision? Because that is because you are looking at it from a question point of view, not a situation point of view. You are not looking it as, you are looking it as bookish something. You are not looking it as real life something. When it comes to real life, I'm pretty sure that you yourself would like to know it better. If somebody comes to you and narrates the story as to this happened, I don't know what to do now, you will ask counter questions and try to kind of probe for more information so that it helps for you, it helps you to take decision. So please try to understand, this is very important again, that this length of case study should not bother you, should not intimidate you, and you should not be getting bogged down by the length of the case study. And how will that happen? Number one, the perspective should be very clear. जितना लंबा केस स्टडी होगा उतना अच्छा है, सॉल्व करने के लिए अच्छा है. अदरवाइज okay, I know you are doing it for the marks. Obviously we are doing, everybody is doing it for the marks, but the marks will come when you will not look at it as a maximum marks will come when you try to look at it as a real life situation. And when it comes to, obviously when you see it as real life situation, think and everything, and then when you come back, obviously it will be solved in a best possible way. So the most important thing, again I am repeating, and that is you need to have a proper perspective before approaching a case study. That perspective is, ये रियल लाइफ सिमुलेशन है, यूपीएससी ने उसको थोड़ा सा लेस कॉम्प्लेक्स, थोड़ा सिंप्लीफाई करके आपके सामने रखा है। आप रियल लाइफ में जैसे सोचते होंगे उसको सोच के या उसके हिसाब से, और ऑब्वियसली इट शुड नॉट बी इन रियल लाइफ. See, if in real life you are thinking something unethical, then what can we do? We can't do anything about it, because in real life also you are supposed to be doing a thing ethically and trying to address the dilemma in a more intelligent way, more pragmatic way, more humane way. ठीक? And perspective, and then it is not a question to be answered, but it's a situation to be responded. So respond to the situation according to what is being asked. Then try to understand what are different types of variants, in which category the case study is falling, कैसे उसको देखा जाए, and then accordingly you need to respond. ठीक? Now, how to tackle a case study is a general exercise. Any case study, now you think, just imagine you are sitting in a powerful position or authorized position, I would say, maybe DM or whichever service you are in. Okay, so imagine that you are sitting in the chair. Now a group of people who represents maybe farmer and credible group of people, or reasonably fairly credible group of people come to you with some demand and some explanation and things. What do they say? They tell you that, sir, यहाँ पे ऐसी इतनी इतनी बारिश हुई है, कम हुई है, ये है, we don't have enough crops, we need support, we need more MSP, blah blah blah, some demand or something. At the same time, senior से भी आपको कॉल आता है कि हमारे पास फंड लिमिटेड है, ये है, वो है, so will not be able to help, and इस बार थोड़ा और कम करना है MSP का पैसा, मान के चलो, or some political demand. Now, if that is the thing, somebody comes and tells you, of which you would gather something for your own sake, you will try to grasp, try to pick, try to kind of think upon, ponder upon a specific aspect more, because you think they are going to help you in taking decision. तो हमें क्या होता है कि उसमें से important, हमें जो important लगता है with respect to taking decision, हम उसको ज्यादा फोकस करेंगे. ठीक है, तो उस फोकस करने के बाद जो बनेगा वो क्या होगा? Your own interpretation, your own kind of a blueprint or a schema of the problem. Because it's always, whenever you need, your decision is required, means what? There is some issue here. जो पहले दो केसेस में तो वही है, that there is some issue happening and it is your responsibility to now tackle the issue. In that case, the fact of the case, that's what is called fact of the case, or first 2-3 here जो भी लिखे हैं, पहले 2-3 चीजें इसमें क्लियर हो जाएंगी. That is, what is the situation, but not as it is exactly mentioned in the question or in the case, but how it is, in what way you have read it, in what way you are reading it, vis-a-vis your efforts towards solution. तो आपको उसको सॉल्व करने के कंटेक्स्ट में आप उसको कैसे देखते हैं वो देखना. दैट इज व्हाट द फर्स्ट थिंग्स दैट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड. क्या है एग्जैक्ट फैक्ट, क्या है केस की. फैक्ट्स मतलब जो ऐसी चीज है जो एकदम फैक्चुअल है कि वो ऐसे गए थे, उतने दिन लगे थे, उतना पैसा मिल रहा है, आंकड़ा है. ठीक है, कैसे, कौन है पर्सन, उसका क्या बैकग्राउंड एंड ऑल दैट. देन ये जो दूसरा एस्पेक्ट है कि इसमें मेरा रोल क्या है, मेरे सामने चैलेंजेस क्या है, ये चीज आ है, कहां कहां पे मेरा इंटरवेंशन की जरूरत है. तो पहला है फैक्ट ऑफ द केस, सेकंड इज माय रोल एंड माय इंटरवेंशन रिक्वायर्ड, And third, obviously, third and fourth is slightly different. So we'll also treat it different. So third is actual decision and exclusion, and last is, which is more important, that is justification of that. See, any question, any case study should be seen, and this is demand of the case studies means what? We are talking from the answer point of view, by the way. Now only thing is we are talking theoretically, just to understand, just to have a hang of case study. So fact, what is the situation, what is expected out of me, what is expected, and specifically expected out of me. Decision, what you do, what will be done, basically what will you do and why. ये आप देखना, कोई भी जिंदगी में भी आपका कोई सिचुएशन ले रहे हो, एनीथिंग दैट in your real life also, if you are taking and you are required to think upon these things, obviously you will think in this direction as to exactly भाई क्या सिनेरियो क्या है, पहले मुझे बताओ. Now whenever you ask, like when somebody explains you कि ऐसा issue हुआ है, and the natural spontaneous question that generally comes from your mouth is कि मुझे थोड़ा ठीक से बताना क्या हुआ है. हाँ, whenever you say this कि ठीक से बताना क्या हुआ है, उसका मतलब ही यही होता है कि मुझे अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन करना, फैक्ट ऑफ द केस, स्टेक होल्डर कौन है, मेरा रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्या, मेरा रोल और कैपेसिटी, मैं इतना केस में क्या कर सकता हूं, क्या क्या चीजें कर सकता हूं ब्रॉडली. तो फैक्ट क्या है, मेरे डिसीजन का इंपैक्ट किस लोगों को पड़ना है, एंड क्या मैं कर सकता हूं. ओके, या फिर उसको सीक्वेंस भी चेंज कर सकते हैं. फैक्ट दैट इज सिचुएशन क्या है, मेरा रोल एंड कैपेसिटी एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दोनों, मतलब मेरा लिमिट क्या है और मेरा ड्यूटी क्या है. ड्यूटी एंड लिमिट आर, ड्यूटी इज पॉजिटिव, लिमिट इज नेगेटिव कंस्ट्रेंट. एंड तीसरा, स्टेक होल्डर्स कौन है, मेरा डिसीजन का इंपैक्ट कितने लोगों पे होना है और कौन कौन पे होगा. ठीक है. देन challenges, values and specific intervention. Now ये further detail है, ये broad case का situation है, and this is what is expected out of me, because ethicality, challenges, everything exactly more detail you will go and you will bring out, you will analyze as to in what direction I should be taking the decision here. And then obviously decision execution, because decision and execution would require to be having its own format. So it's always better that you go with the format, right? So, and obviously ethical and pragmatic and law, that's okay. Justification, आपको justification ethical point of view से देना है, practical point of view से देना है, and legal constitutional point of view से देना है. इससे ज्यादा कोई और point of view नहीं है. When I say law, I am talking about law as in constitution and law and constitution, law of the land वाला law. Pragmatic because भाई possible है नहीं है, practically possible है नहीं है वो. And ethical is कौन सी value, compassion. This page is very important because every case study, and when I say case study, I am talking about two basic versions of case study, that is option case study and action case study. So I am thinking from this point of view. So ये सब चीज को आपको बिना सोचे, you will not be able to kind of tackle this particular thing of case study at all. आपको वो otherwise समझ में आएगा ही नहीं. And this is the these are the only ways where you can think of case study in that particular direction. Please try to understand, as I already mentioned, context. Every case study you read, you know, at least abhi practice ke liye, what you do is every time you read the case study, you in the first 15 seconds you just recite these things to in your mind. Number one, this case study real life simulation hai, UPSC wants to see and what all different directions and what all ethical directions and justifications I can do. Real life situation hai, UPSC wants me to do in that direction. Third, it's not a question to be answered but a situation to be responded. Fourth, जितना लंबा केस स्टडी, जितनी ज्यादा जानकारी होगी उतना आसान रहेगा डिसीजन लेना. ठीक है. फिफ्थ, केस स्टडी दो टाइप की होती है, या तो ऑप्शंस इंपॉर्टेंट है जहां पे एथिकल स्टैंड ज्यादातर एंड म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव होना चाहिए, या फिर ये एक्शन ओरिएंटेड है जहां पे कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन ज्यादा, अल्गोरिदमिक थिंकिंग की ज्यादा is what important required. Then you see, read the case study. Now you need to see, ideally you should read case study at least thrice. Now you will say, my God, ये तो possible ही नहीं है. See, this now I'm slightly, I will keep on repeating this thing, but this is very important. That's why I'm telling it now. When it comes to writing the case study, time management, because case study में ना time management becomes very important. Case study में time management becomes very, very important. As in, as you already know, for every 10 marks in UPSC, any topic, any paper for that matter, you have 7 minutes. Okay? So 20 marks, you have 14 minutes. And this is the maximum limit. So 20 marks is what case study would be. So 14 minutes, that means around first 3 minutes you can use for brainstorming. Basically, brainstorming means what? Brainstorming means this slide. Understanding the demand of the case study is what brainstorming is. So this is the first and foremost thing, and we will practice this that you have to do. Then rest of the 10 to 11 minutes is more than sufficient for you to write the answer. Now, when you do brainstorming, obviously demand of the case study and I would say format, not structure. Format of case study. Why I say format? Because it's about marks. So एक particular format हो, structure हो, जनरली स्ट्रक्चर बोलते हैं. ये डिमांड मीन्स कंटेंट डिमांड. बेसिकली उसमें किस चीज का विषय जो है ना, डोमेन डिमांड, एंड दिस इज स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द केस स्टडी. ये सब पहले 3 मिनट में, 4 मिनट भी लग सकते हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. शुरुआत में यू मे रिक्वायर 5 मिनट्स. प्लीज टेक इट, प्लीज टेक इट. दिस ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग आल्सो इंक्लूड्स रीडिंग द केस स्टडी, रीडिंग द केस 3 times. Now you will say, ये वाला थोड़ा सा कंट्रोवर्शियल आपको लगेगा, 3 बार कौन पढ़ेगा सर केस स्टडी इतना लंबा? See, this when I say 3 times, don't take it as a ritual. What I am trying to indicate, please focus on that. What I am indicating here is, it's not the ritual of following 3 times. It's like your understanding of case study should be as confident, as clear as if you have read it 3 times. So initially, basically, you have to actually read it 3 times. When you start, because it's everything, whatever I am talking about here now, time management, it's all depends upon only one thing. Okay, all this so-called time management and all only depends on one thing, and that is, anybody? Practice, practice, and practice. How much practice? Simple. Every attempt you should solve 100 case studies yourself. When to solve that, will some people, if they are they enjoy, they are excited, and they feel the excitement while writing attempting case study, they can do it now for some time. And I know most of you must have started the prelims preparation side by side, but you can do now. And obviously immediately after the pre is over, 5th June pre is over, and obviously free is also over. So maybe 7th, 8th June you start every day one case study. You have around 90 days, 80-90 days, enough. आप बोलेंगे ये 100 case studies लाएंगे कहाँ से? Every year there are 6 case studies, right? 2013 से लेके 21 तक there have been 8 examinations, right? So you have 48 case studies here only. Please solve them. Initial, you might take more time, not 14 minutes. It's okay. It's okay. In fact, पहले 2-3 के लिए तो आप time लगाइए, I know time management is important, but पहले 2-3 बार आप take your time, come up with good answer. But एक दो बार ही, then shift to the time management. Then you might take, instead of 14, you might take 16, 17, 18 minutes, maybe 20 minutes per case, maybe. That also will continue for a week or two, maybe. Slowly you will realize that your time is reducing. Without this, nothing is going to happen. Without this, nothing is going to happen. Rest of the 50, around 50, you can take it from anywhere market में available होता है. We will also give you, and you just solve it. Main important thing is solving it. Evaluation happens because if you have enrolled yourself in similar kind of program like damp ethics or some case study, something like that, then obviously you'll get it evaluated. Okay, but don't wait for evaluation, start writing. Because this is about 120 marks. Can you imagine? 120 marks is half of the paper. You know how much effort you put for the GS3 half paper, or how much effort you need to put, how much things you have to read and recollect and remember and all. In GS2, GS1, history, art and culture, ancient India, medieval India, modern India, Indian society, okay, and post-independence India. Huge stuff you have to read and remember. Here, nothing of that sort is required, because obviously whatever you are reading in other aspects will be used here. But point is, unless you practice this, see, I'll tell you, anybody who is not following this is not having any ethical, moral right even to ask any doubt. Yes, somebody would have started stuck somewhere, एक दो लिखे हैं, तीन लिखे हैं, मैं stuck हो गया sir. People can come to, or people can ask me or anybody for that matter, कि मैं कैसे ethics का करूं, only when they have done this or they are on the way to this. Because if you're on the way of solving 100, your questions will be different. That ये particular case study में मैंने ऐसे लिखा sir, I don't know whether it is right way or right, is the better way to doing it. ये choose करता ऑप्शन तो कैसे रहता वो, that's okay. ओके, या फिर केस स्टडी समझ में आ रही है, गवर्नेंस वाली थोड़ा ठीक जा रही है, बाकी ये हो सकता है. बट मुझे एथिक्स का कुछ समझ में नहीं आता, केस स्टडी का तो डर ही लगता है. दैट मीन्स यू आर नॉट स्टार्टेड. नाउ यू विल से सर डर लगता है इसलिए तो स्टार्ट नहीं किया. आई वुड से स्टार्ट नहीं किया इसलिए डर लग रहा है. तो प्लीज ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड. इनफैक्ट द मोमेंट वी हैव फर्स्ट लेक्चर, प्लीज वो जिसमें डिस्कस किए वही लिखने की कोशिश करो, कोई इशू नहीं है. स्टार्ट समथिंग, राइट? So this is time management, and in this 14 minutes, obviously during the case study also we will discuss about this. Format also we will discuss about. ठीक? So you have 14 minutes, and 3 minutes you can use. So 3 times you have to read. Initially 3 बार पढ़ना ही पड़ेगा. तो उसकी प्रैक्टिस होनी चाहिए, जल्दी पढ़ने की, जल्दी ग्रास्प कॉम्प्रहेंड करने की, बहुत जरूरी है. Because once you become an officer, IAS officer, IPS officer, you are always required to do it. What is this case study? Even if you may not be reading the case study proper, but you would be actually reading some of the other case. फाइल आ जाएगी सामने, फाइल में यही तो लिखा होता है जो केस स्टडी में लिखा होता है. ऑब्वियसली केस स्टडी में बहुत छोटा लिखा होता है, ओनली एग्जाम ओरिएंटेड पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से थोड़ा सा छोटा, उसको लेस कॉम्प्लेक्स, सिंपलर वर्जन होता है. जब रियल लाइफ में आप फाइल पढ़ेंगे, फाइल इज वेरी प्रॉब्लम, इट्स वेरी हेक्टिक वर्क इन दैट वे इफ यू रियली वांट टू डू इट. You may say, no, somebody will put noting. Whatever it is, if you really want to be effective officer, by the way, it doesn't happen because of the Singamgiri that you might do. Okay, real good officers are those who know how to do things on paper perfectly. Please try to, whichever office, you might be IAS, IPS, even IPS. It's not about how you can shout at your juniors, how much strong you are. That is one aspect. I'm not discounting it. But sitting at that higher position as an IPS or IAS, your main job is to write things on paper or read things that are already written on the paper, and your decision is nothing but what you will write on the file. Please try to understand. Your decision is the decision that you are going to take is nothing but what you are writing on the file, nothing else. Okay, so please try to understand that you are required to think in a particular way, and go through a particular process that we discussed about, and then only, and you have to practice these things a lot. The context, खुद को recite करने वाला. Second, the format, the demand of the question को grasp करना, brainstorming 3 मिनट 4 मिनट की बात है. Read the case study for 3 times, and as I said, go with UPSC's own case studies. Start from 2013. थोड़ा शुरुआत में easy case studies थी, so that will help you. And that's the way you should go it. And also try to understand whether the case study is talking about asking about options or it is asking about course of action. Accordingly, you will serve. Okay. So again, let's come back to our thing. So this you understood, demand of the case study and all that.